You are tuned into the first episode of Chasing Gold Olympics 2024. This is a special month-long podcast brought to you by Voice of America, focused on the Olympic Games being held in France's capital city, Paris, the city of love. I'm your host, Muqbil Yabarow, joined by my co-host, Mike Hove. What's going on, Mike?
What's happening, brother?
Hey. What an amazing time to be alive. Huh?
What a time to be alive. What a time to be alive. Bonjour, bonjour. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to VOA's special podcast, Chasing Gold Olympics 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here, the very first episode. Now, in today's podcast, we're going to be giving you profiles as we feature some of the best, and I mean the best of the best African athletes who are going to be featuring in the Paris Olympics. And dare I add, ladies and gentlemen, the expectations on some of these athletes is very high. So you're going to get to learn a lot about them today. But before we delve deeper into today, let us look at the history of Africa's performance at the Olympics. Now, of course, ladies and gentlemen, Africa, when we're looking at the history of the Olympics, it's 128 years old. Africa has won over 440 medals. Now, leading the chart is Kenya with 113 medals, 36 are gold. South Africa is next with 80 medals and 27 are gold. And then, of course, in third place, we have Ethiopia with 58 medals, 28 are gold. Following that is Egypt with 38 medals, Nigeria with 27, Morocco with 24, Algeria with 17, Tunisia 15, Uganda 11, Zimbabwe 8, Cameroon 6, Namibia and Ghana are sitting at 5, Ivory Coast with 4, Burundi, Mozambique, Tanzania, Zambia, Niger and Botswana are sitting at 2. Senegal, Sudan, Gabon, Togo, Burkina Faso, Mauritius, Djibouti and Eritrea all have 1 medal. But now, speaking of medals, of course, let's hear from some of the Kenyan athletes who have qualified for the Paris Olympics. Included is Ferdinand Omanyala, the fastest man in Africa. He recently clocked a 9.79 seconds in the 100-meter sprints. Let's take a listen.
And my yes, Gideon.
I'm really on the right direction towards Paris Olympics. I was really working hard before, and then I got a little bit of muscle injury. But now I'm free, and I can train well, and hopefully going forward, I will work for 110% for sure. It is not my first Olympic, it's my second Olympic. So I'm ready, I'm well prepared. I'm just waiting for the time so that we can compete.
As you can see, we are picking at the right time, so that's what really matters to me right now. And 10:09 is a jogging time to me, so going into Paris, we want to run more sub-10.
Ladies and gentlemen, you just heard there from Faith Kipyegon, the female world 1,500-meter record holder. You also heard from Ferdinand Omanyala, the fastest man in Africa. Muqbil, man, what a vibe.
Talk to me, Mike. To me, I feel like at the moment what we're seeing with African sports is unreal. Mm-hmm. Fred really has the ability to go up against anybody in that 100-meter. Oh, we've seen what we've done with his pace, but, you know, normally when you see that race, you usually see the U.S. versus Jamaica, right? That is the rivalry that we know. But seeing, you know, Africans starting to get into that race to me is monumental. We've seen Botswana also,
in the mix,
start medaling as well as Kenya. So very interested to see how that goes.
9:79, what a clock, what a time to clock. You know what's more exciting for me and what's more intriguing and what I'm looking forward to seeing is if he can repeat that in Paris. I mean, he recently did this in his preparatory games leading towards Paris. So he did this last week.
Right.
His first race is going to be in a couple of weeks. I'm really curious to see if he's able to do it. I mean, we're going to see him going against, of course, the champ himself, Noah Lyles, U.S. representative.
Listen.
What's your take on him, man?
Noah Lyles is looking to double in the 100-meter and the 200-meter. You know, he recently said, you know, the 200-meter, he basically considers it his wife. He says this is
and the 100 is my side chick.
Right. He said this is the person. You know, the 100 meter will almost always go with who is the most popular. But he said the 200 meter, you know, will stay loyal to me. He's like I've only lost that, you know, but a few times in his career, you know, since he's gone pro. So I'm expecting him to do as well as he has. He, I feel like, is that needed character for the sport to really transcend. Sometimes, you know, with Olympic athletes, we see they are so much more popular everywhere else outside of the country. If you're not somebody who really follows track and field, you might not be that familiar with somebody like a Noah Lyles. But anywhere else in the world, especially when they go to London,
of course, he's big out there.
He's a megastar. So what he's just trying to do is turn the tides. You know, if you remember that comment that he made where he said NBA players win the championship, and he said the world championships of what?
Right.
And to be honest, a lot of the NBA players were actually, you know, disappointed. They were kind of like disappointed in that comment. But the world, like the players, like the Giannis's and the Jokic's were like, that's pretty valid. It's pretty valid because, you know, as an NBA champ, you are a champion of the league within America. You're not a world champion until you compete against the world. So very interesting to see what Omanyala is able to do in that race, you know, if everything goes accordingly.
We also have the guy you were talking about now from Botswana. He's also up in there in the mix.
Right.
He's got a big record looking up, and I'm looking forward because he came second against Noah Lyles in the previous World Championships.
Budapest,
so it's going to be something intriguing. But speaking of that, let's look at Africa's medal count, right? We talked about this. Kenya being the highest right now with 113 medals, 35 are gold. We have right now, for example, in the women's side, right, the female, we talked about her. She's the world record holder right now with in the 1,500 meter, you know, race right there.
Right.
Do you think Kenya can make a mark?
You know, Kenya is almost always a country that does really well when it comes to the Olympics. We know the legend, Eliud Kipchoge. Come on. You know, like when you just think of names like that, you just think to yourself, man, this is the legend that this country has been able to, you know, produce. So from my perspective, I always see Kenya, whenever they come into any race, in particular in track and field, almost always got a shot.
Their baby.
In particular, the longer races, because that's mainly what they're known for. You know, the longer distances, the Kenyas, the Ethiopias, the Eritreas, Somalia once upon a time.
But hey, we do have an interview that's going to be lined up with the Somalian.
Absolutely, you know. So it's very interesting to see what we can do, you know, some of these athletes that we have seen, in these respective East African regions, for whatever reason, just have the ability to do really well in those longer races. But like we said, Omanyala being able to come through and now switch it up and say, not only can we run long, we can run fast.
Short, right.
We can run fast as well. Man, it's amazing.
Let's talk about the legacy, of course, of the Olympics itself. As you mentioned, we've seen America and Jamaica be the powerhouses on both forts, not just the female side, but the male side. We've seen so many female runners. If we're looking at the female side of things, of course, when we're talking long distance, this is where we have the Ethiopian women, the Kenyan women. They all now have a fort on that. When we're talking about short distance,
right, sprinting.
Talk to me about Jamaica.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, Jamaica is Jamaica, man. You know, it's a small island country, but you know their imprint in the world has been massive as it pertains to track and field in particular, right? Usain Bolt is somebody who is really, when you really just think, how interesting is it that this man's name was Usain Bolt, and he is Bolton, right? Absolutely, you know the pace that man has and what he broke, the records that he broke, is amazing. But he's not the only Jamaican, right? We've seen Asafa Powell, we've seen the Johan Blakes, you know, in the past. At the moment, it doesn't seem like there is a really strong contending Jamaican that can kind of compete with Noah Lyles in this very moment. But it's only a matter of time. When we look at the women's side, the 100 meters, you have Sha'Carri Richardson, who's really the main one for the U.S. that, you know, can potentially win this 100 meters. But you have Sharika Jackson, who now is...
She has a chokehold.
She is basically the new queen of running in Jamaica. You know, Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price, who is a decorated gold medalist, as well as Elaine Thompson-Herah, who unfortunately due to injury was unable to make it to Paris. But man, what do we see? Interestingly enough, those three women all came out of the same
camp,
right? MVP camp, right? So one small camp has produced some of the best Olympic runners.
I was actually
amazing.
thinking about that because if you see the actual head coach of the MVP camp and you met him, you would not believe that this guy is coaching Olympians, man.
Legendary. Sometimes, you just got to know.
Don't judge a book by its cover.
You just have to know what to do. You don't necessarily have to be the runner yourself in order to know. And sometimes what we've also seen is great athletes don't make the best coaches either.
Yes.
A lot of times they have a natural gift, and they expect individuals to be able to run just like them.
Now, of course, the Olympics, when we're talking about 100-meter sprints, as you mentioned, it's very synonymous with Usain Bolt. And I always used to giggle that during Bolt's era, we had Tyson Gay.
Yes, sir.
Right? American sprinter. Beast of nature.
Right.
It was just unfortunate that he was going up against Usain Bolt. But now that era is over, does Noah Lyles have his chance to solidify his legacy right now?
I absolutely think so. I think Noah Lyles, like I said earlier, not only does he have the ability to do it, but he has the personality, I feel like, that will allow him to...
Muhammad Ali.
Man,
he really does. He talks, and he comes in, he obliterates you after.
Muhammad Ali, that's a tough one.
He does. His personality.
Might have to clip it up. But, honestly, I think, I really like the stances that he takes. I really like what he says, and he has been very vocal about wanting to transcend the sport, right? He said that not only is it about, running well and getting the medals, but that's the first step in being able to, do what it needs to do in order to become a mega star outside of the sport. So kudos to him for that. It's going to be very fun to watch.
I'm really excited, especially that Omanyala race against Noah Lyles in both the 100 and the 200. I'm really excited for that because, of course, once again, Omanyala entering it on a 9.79. That's immaculate pace.
You know what they say, man. Sometimes you're not racing against time. You're racing against guys. So sometimes,
person right next to you.
What will happen is you might go into a heat and just race just to beat your competition.
Right.
But sometimes when you have these, what they call the heats of death, right? You'll have three potential world record holders going up against each other, and they'll just pace each other in order to break records, but also to get the best out of themselves as well. So sometimes you might see somebody come in second or third place, but break a world record in their country.
Right.
Respectively, So it's going to be very interesting.
That actually happened with the British athlete, right? Who's got the record in Britain.
Yeah, Hughes, I believe. He came in third.
He came in third, right?
But still broke the world
record. So that's something interesting. But we're about to head over to a break, and when we come back, Muqbil, we're going to hear more about the other African athletes, including folks from Liberia. There's a couple of hot folks coming out there. Of course, we're going to touch on the Super Dream Team 2.0.
Come on, only
South
the greatest,
Sudan is going to be going up against them, so I'm excited
created.
for that. But please take us to a break, man.
Yeah, absolutely. We will be right back. We will be right back on Chasing Gold 2024.
You're watching VOA's Red Carpet. My name is Jackson Vunganyi. Thank you so much for joining us each week right here on Red Carpet. We bring you the latest in
health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Linor Moudou, in Washington, every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
Yes, Mike, let's bring in a female perspective on the Olympics. Our intern, Omolemo Kale, had a sit down with Yemi Olos Galadima. She's a freelance journalist with the World Athletics. They spoke about Liberian-American sprinter Joseph Fambule, Ebony Morrison, another Liberian sprinter, and others. Let's take a listen.
I believe Fambule has already qualified even before the African Championships. I know he's qualified in the 200 meters based on the times he's run this year. And then another Liberian, actually, in the 100 meters hurdles, a lady who won the 100 meters hurdles, Ebony Morrison from Liberia, also met the qualifying standard here. You know, her winning time here is enough to qualify her for the Olympics. So Botswana also ran in the 4x1. Letile Tebogo ran a fantastic anchor leg for them, and that just put them within the qualifying point for the Olympics, because just 16 teams are qualifying in the relays for the Olympics, 16 teams in the world, you know, and so his time put Botswana in good stead to also qualify for the Olympics. So I am aware of those. And for Fambule, yeah, that's really good. Liberia is actually coming up with a new generation of sprinters who really want to do very well. You know, Fambule winning the 100 and 200, and we had a Liberian also taking second in the women's 100. And in the women's 4x1 relay as well, they took the bronze medal. So Liberia is actually coming up, and that's really exciting, you know, the prospects African sprinters have in global track and field.
That was Yemi Olos Galadima, a freelance journalist with World Athletics. She was speaking to our intern, Omolemo Kale. Mike, let's talk a little bit about, you know, what she was saying right there, you know?
Yeah, man. She was pointing out a couple of big athletes. You heard there about Fambule. He's a Liberian-American athlete there. He's someone to definitely look up. Of course, she also highlighted Deboho, as I mentioned, the Botswanan runner who time and time again seems to be that little egg for Noah Lyles.
Right.
He's been in the mix so many times. He's definitely someone to look out for in Paris.
Question. What do you think about him? You know, if he were to take the approach that Noah Lyles takes, right, where he's more boisterous, he's speaking out a little bit more, do you think it'll help his profile? Because I feel like a lot of times you're right. He's doing everything correct when it comes to the race.
Right.
But his brand, right, are people invested in seeing him win outside of, you know, Botswana?
So the thing is, when it comes to brand alignment, of course, it now comes down to personality, right? Noah Lyles, as I mentioned, that's why I aligned him with like the likes of Muhammad Ali, because he's very boisterous. He has a mission, and that his goal is, I want to be the best. And his goal, of course, is I want to supersede what the sport is. So for someone like that, you need a boisterous, you know, there's very few athletes who are like that. We're thinking Muhammad Ali, we're thinking Floyd Mayweather. These are people who are there to make a statement and say, hey, I'm bigger than what the sport is supposed to be. Deboho, on the other hand, he's someone who's very talented. Talent is, he's the same thing with Omanyala from Kenya, right? Talent does not really supersede them. However, they don't seem to have that personality of trying to be, I want to be bigger than the sport. They're there to say, hey, I want to show you that I am good and better than you, and I want to beat you and go back to my corner and be in silence. For them, I think their statements are supposed to be made more on the track, unlike Loa, who wants to make his statement on the track, but he also wants to make his statement beyond the world. So, of course, being boisterous always helps in any sport. Any sport, when you are boisterous and you can prove it, it makes a big difference. However, there's some people who are just aren't boisterous by nature. There's some people who just want to make a statement and go back to their corner and do what they got to do. Because for them, it's not just about, I want to be the best in the world, but they just really want to be someone who's known for their talent, someone who wants to rep their country, someone who wants to, you know, uplift the sport and their people. The rest for them is like noise.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't know how we got this far on the program without mentioning arguably the most decorated U.S. Olympian of all time, Simone Biles. Come on.
Come on, man.
37 world championships and Olympic medals.
And she will be in Paris.
And not only will she be in Paris, she seems like she can just go for, first off, gymnastics in and of itself to me is so challenging, right? Because it's like one little mistake. Sometimes you don't even know how these refs are how these judges are reffing this. Like, what is a point? How do you deduct a point for a way a person lands? And she has been dominating, man, for so long, man. Talk to me about what do you think it would take for Africa or African countries to step into that portion of the Olympics?
So the interesting part about Africa, especially when you look at the Olympics, right, is there's two parts to it. The first part is the participation. Who is participating, right? We have an interview that we're going to play in a couple of weeks of one of the Angolan rowers, right, Andre Matias.
Yeah.
He talks about his journey and how he had to front his own self.
Wow.
I know a lot of South African golfers who are going to the Olympics, and they had to front their money up front. Kirsty Coventry, one of the most decorated Zimbabwean Olympians, she has 7 of the 8 that Zimbabwe has.
Right.
She had to front a lot of money out of her own pocket to get there.
Right.
So finances play a big role when it comes to discovering talent in Africa. And that's not just for the Olympics.
Right.
That goes to any sport,
yeah,
right?
all the sports,
Finances play a very major role when it comes to unraveling who's talented and who does what. So Africa has that barrier. But at the same time, beyond the talent, there also comes resources. And not just finances, but do we have enough theaters and stadiums where young kids can go and practice gymnastics? That's another discussion to be had, right? I for myself, studied in South Africa. That's not one of the biggest sports.
Right.
We had track and field,
Right.
we had javelin, we had long jump, but these are all sports, where the resources are already there. It's the land.
Right.
We had high jump. We had,
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But gymnastics was not one of the most popular sports. And if you did do gymnastics,
Yeah.
you went to a private school. So
Gotcha.
it's delving back to that discussion we've had time and time again with basketball. Or do we have enough resources on the continent for that?
What does it take for us to get to that
Investment.
level? Right.
Time and time again. This isn't just coming from me. We've had these conversations all time and time again with different sports, right?
Right.
Investment calls for it. And it's good. Once again, I do applaud the fact that we are starting to see investments. And I think when we have more, because we have some African Olympians who are going there, who are going to be in gymnastics, right? When you start unraveling that we have more of this talent, you start attracting more attention.
Right.
Let's say we are in a situation where a lot of Africans shine in Paris. We're going to see a lot of difference when we're talking about who pays attention to what in Africa. I think that's definitely a thing. And it's good to see that we've seen an increase in terms of the amount of Africans who are going to be participating in the Olympics.
Right.
Because that's another thing that's going to be a contributing factor towards that.
Great segue. So since we're talking that, basketball. South Sudan is the only African team that has qualified for the Olympics basketball team. Talk to me a little bit about what you think the chances are for South Sudan, and just what does this mean for not only South Sudan, but for the continent of Africa to have a team. To me, I feel like South Sudanese have a lot of very talented basketball players across the region. If we look at it within the diaspora, they play in Australia. You have a ton of them that are playing in the U.S., NBA, G League, Europe. So
forget that the Basketball Africa League. Every team had a South Sudanese. I can't think of a team that did not have a South Sudanese. Well, maybe not. Actually, even Al Egypt had it.
Yeah, and then also the South Sudanese Lual. Lual was also the MVP of the tournament as well. 2 years in a row, if I'm not mistaken, a South Sudanese won it, because the year prior, Nuno Mat with Al Ahly Egypt won it as well. So what do you think their chances are, and who do you think are the favorites going into it for the Olympics of basketball?
So here's the thing. They are a very talented bunch. The fortunate part is that they're all diaspora based. So when it's a conversation around resources, it's very limited, because some of them, as you mentioned, are based in Australia. Some are based here in America. Some are based. Very few of them are based in South Sudan, if there's any. So it's really intriguing. A lot of these names are names that we know that featured in the Basketball Africa League, but that have also featured in different leagues across the world, including the FIBA World Championships. And so I think if they're able to play well, they're definitely going to make a statement. Now, whether or not they win gold, that's a whole different chat. Why? Because there's one fixture that they're going to have that is going to be a headache. And they are playing against Dream Team 2.0.
Is that what is it? Are you coining them that? Is that what the world is?
It has to be Dream Team 2.0. I can't think of anyone that is on that team that is not a superstar.
Yeah.
And for context, ladies and gentlemen, Dream Team 2.0 is the American team.
Yeah.
And so that game against South Sudan versus Dream Team 2.0. Now, once again, basketball, sports, the beautiful thing about it is sometimes even the underdog is able to emerge victorious.
Absolutely.
However, when we're looking on paper, it's going to be a long night. We just saw what Dream Team 2.0 did to Canada. They ripped them to shreds.
They did.
So it's really going to be interesting.
They almost slipped up against Australia.
Yes.
So what we're seeing is this is a team with the legendary names.
LeBron James.
You know, Hall of Famers.
Steph Curry.
You know, LeBron James, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant.
Yes.
You know, you got Jason Tatum just coming off of a championship. The likes of, you know, Drew Holiday and as well as Anthony Edwards, the new potential face of the league. You have all these different players that.
The only person that I can think of that's missing is Kyrie.
Kyrie, Jaylen Brown's also missing. You know, Finals MVP Jaylen Brown.
Yes.
But, you know, Kawhi stepped out and maybe they needed somebody that could kind of, you know, do what Kawhi does to a certain extent. Derek White is an exceptional player as well, so that works out. But, so we're expecting the U.S. to take that, but South Sudan to be, you know,
They definitely,
to do well.
I strongly believe that they're definitely going to make a statement. Now, what that statement looks like is going to be a whole different conversation. But also, once again, it unravels and brings back the conversation to what kind of attention will Africa get after this? I strongly believe that with the emergence of the Basketball Africa League, with South Sudan doing well in France, we're going to see a whole different conversation when we're talking about the Olympics, the next Olympics, when we're talking about the next Basketball Africa League, when we're talking about the next FIBA championships, when we're talking about all these different things. I strongly believe that with African faces there, the fact that South Sudan is there, and we all know these names are strong names on the continent, they're strong names in other parts of the world, they can make a statement if they're able to play together. All
right, so if we're going to just touch on one more sport, let's talk soccer.
Of course.
You know, Euros and Copa America just finished up. Some quote-unquote disappointing ends for some players, some key players that we've seen. Do you think any of the megastars that we saw in Europe, in the Euros, and as well as Copa America,
in the Olympics?
Can they feature?
It's going to be tough, merely because of the turnaround, right?
Right.
Some of these folks, their clubs are already starting, you know, their pre-seasons. So if we think of, for example, Mbappe made his official announcement saying, hey, I'm now a Real Madrid player.
Yes.
All right. So I don't know that Real Madrid is ready to say, okay, you just came from Euros. Now go play for France in the Olympics and then come back, especially when it's clashing with preseason. So it's going to be tough. However, of course, we still have, as much as it's not these giant names, the Kylian Mbappes and all that, we're still going to have a couple of prominent players who are going to be featuring. A lot of these players are going to be, we're looking at the likes of people who are under 21, under 18. These are all the young, bubbling talent that we're going to see. And you know, people always have this discussion of if you're under 18, you're not nothing. I can almost guarantee you the youngest player in Europe right now, right? we're talking Lamine Yamal. He's under 21. He could easily go represent Spain, right?
Could have
Nico
played,
Williams.
He could have played under 17.
Do you see
under
what I'm
19.
saying? Like, So this conversation for me is definitely something to be made. But ladies and gentlemen, we're about to wrap up. With that in mind, of course, we just had our first episode of our Chasing Gold Paris Olympics 2024. And of course, we're going to be back in the next episode where we're going to be talking to the personnel in person. I'm your host, Mike Hove. Let's meet same time, same place next week. Swiss.
Muqbil, Yabarow. Have a good one. See you.
Peace.